All right, guys. So I've got a great guy called Jesse, uh, talking us to all about climate futures, what's going on in the market, and one of the things I like to do is I want to be transparent with my audience about what some of these great guys are doing in the blockchain, in the crypto space. This is going to be one fascinating video interview telling us all about what climate futures are doing, what they're up to. One thing I like about this project is they're doing something for the environment, and that's something that really ticks my boxes, and especially with my audience, the listeners that are also checking it out. You know all who I am on LinkedIn. I've got a very big following, and we're going to talk about climate futures and how tokenization, how the blockchain is changing in this field, and how we're trying to stand on the right side to tell people, global warming is a real thing. It's a real, problem in this environment. And I think Jesse's doing some great things in the space to highlight that. And in the second phase, we're going to talk about all about the app. Just first things first is this is not a financial advice. And for best practices, this is a sponsored interview, just so then we're pretty transparent in terms of what the project's all about, and just tell people, we want to stay on the right side. So take this as an educated video interview to tell you guys all about it. Jesse, it's great to have you. Fire away. Why did you start the project, and what made you get into climate futures?
All right. Well, thanks, Nazareth, and thanks for having us on your program. We're really excited to tell your audience about our project. It's called the One Planet Marketplace. The company is Climate Futures, and you can go to climatefutures.com to find out more about us. Basically, I've been working with climate projects that reduce emissions of greenhouse gases, also called carbon emissions, for almost 20 years now. And I was really interested in blockchain technology. Obviously, I'd heard about it some years ago. Didn't really see initially the application for what we work with, which is primarily projects that produce carbon credits. So
right,
we help companies, generally speaking, reduce emissions of greenhouse gases, and we work with carbon markets, which allows us to monetize that or incentivize that. So carbon credits are a global commodity, an eco commodity that have been traded since something called the Kyoto Protocol was started back around 2005 was when really the markets got going, but the Kyoto Protocol was actually a little bit earlier, predated that. So the background why we got into blockchain was, a big part of our, way of working is we do a lot of carbon accounting. So whenever you have to look at, how much was reduced and how much was emitted and these kind of things, you're looking at potential applications for blockchain. And what was really interesting was, what we saw in the marketplace or in the space was that we needed to build a more trusted platform for, providing carbon offsetting services, and blockchain technology provides that. So if you look in the market today, and in the past, there was actually scams with carbon credits and carbon offset selling. In the UK, there was some famous ones where you're dealing with essentially a digital commodity, which has no physical representation. So it's actually not too difficult for people to scam other people, and this happened in the early days of the markets when they were forming. So we wanted to see how we could provide overcome some of these issues, overcome some issues with access to actually the carbon credits. So there are websites you can go to that will offer you a carbon credit or a carbon offset, offset this or that. But at the end of the day, you never get any kind of you never get any assets, you never take delivery of a carbon credit, because for small actors, basically people in smaller companies, you just can't do it. You're not set for it. So you're in a case where I think, tokenization and blockchain is a really great example, because you're taking a digital token, you're connecting it to a digital commodity, and you're delivering something that is in the way of an asset to the buyer of it. Whereas before, they would just get a piece of paper that said, you know, thank you very much, you've helped the environment. So the transparency element of it is really key. And then the other side of it, which I think is really exciting, is the use cases. So it's not about trading per se, it's also about how you can use the carbon credits in new ways. So you can incentivize environmental behavior, you can use them as rewards. You know, we're working with companies to develop ways to...
We'll go into that shortly in interview, and I think it's a great...
So why did we do it? So we just, you know, we decided that, you know, this was the future in our business as well. I think the way we designed the platform itself, the One Planet Marketplace, is it's modular, so we can keep, you know, developing the system as new technology and blockchain technology evolves.
That's interesting.
You know, so it's not, we're not dedicated to one particular protocol, even though we're using Hyperledger and we're using Ethereum. We built it in a way that things are upgradable, if you will.
So one thing is kind of interesting with me is, you know, transparency is a great thing, and I love what you guys stand for straight from the offset. You know, telling us all about carbon credits, what you guys are doing, and for me that's quite important to an audience, especially when it comes to global warming and how you're trying to use blockchain to tackle this sector. And I think this resonates with a lot of people who are probably watching this for all the good reasons. And would you agree that's something you're doing to stand for?
I think so, because when I talk to people, and I've, you know, not just in the blockchain community, but I've been really impressed actually with the blockchain crowd.
Right.
When I started going to conferences, I realized that there was a lot of smart people and doing some amazing things with this technology. So it gave me a lot of hope for, let's call it the younger generation. You know, I'm a little bit older. I've been working with this stuff for 20 years now. But you know, what I find is that a lot of people are concerned about climate change.
They are, yeah.
We're not really in this debate now where I ask people, you know, do you believe in climate change? You know, usually in America, I run into that and I'll say, well, do you believe in it? And most people will say yes. And I go, okay, well, what can you do about it?
I don't know if you heard about the famous lady, the Swedish lady. She came along and made a big noise over this, right?
Yeah, you're right. And I think, you know, her activity has really raised it. But I think, again, outside of protesting, a lot of people don't know how to engage in the problem in a proactive way. And that's what we're trying to deliver with One Planet, is we're giving people an opportunity to take climate action. So we designed it so that anyone and everyone can actually take verifiable climate action and do something about their own carbon footprint, but also working with our partners to do transactional. So basically, every time you buy a product from our partners or you use their services, you're helping the environment. So we designed it so that it's B2B.
I love that. I love the fact that you're kind of helping the environment, and a lot of my listeners will probably be now tuning into, you know, Climate Futures, how serious you guys are in terms of using blockchain technology to really try and help the environment in some way. Let's talk about your project then. What, you know, why did you start your project? You know, what was the motive behind it?
Well, as I said, the motive was to kind of democratize access to carbon credits and develop new use cases for them, because in most cases, they're basically a commodity that resides in these sort of specialized registries and things, and you can't really use them in a transactional way.
Right.
Enter blockchain, enter crypto tokens, and suddenly when you link the two, you have you solve, for me, a couple of issues. One, truthfully, I have to say I don't know how people value crypto tokens, but I can take something that I understand there's a market for, and I can connect it to a crypto token.
That's so important. You just said that.
Real utility, real value.
Yeah.
So that's something that solves that issue for me. And then the real big issue that again we're trying to solve is how to do transactional offsetting and more real time, not just looking at, okay, during the last year I did this and this and this. No, I want to have it so that when you take an Uber ride, you can offset that ride, or when you buy a product again online. So we've really, or when you charge up your electric vehicle, you can use it, either the tokens or the platform will be working behind the scenes. So we kind of want to create this seamless ecosystem that it's going to take time. You know, the technology is coming where that will happen, you know, so this is the first iteration of that. But, you know, our vision for it long term is that we have this positive ecosystem that people can engage in to lead a more sustainable lifestyle. Because,
Yeah,
you know, a huge part of the issue is people don't know where to find the products and services, because that's all we're doing. We're consumers during the day. We're doing a lot of things. We all want to help the environment. We're all kind of casual environmentalists, right? We're going through the day, we're taking shortcuts. We don't have time to find everything that we need. So with the app, as it grows, as the partners grow, people will be able to find the services and products they need to have a smaller carbon footprint to lead a more environmental lifestyle.
I think it's kind of interesting. You said, you know, building a token and building a white paper. I don't think that cuts it anymore, you know, where you can just build a project and out of thin air provide value to it. I think we need something more legitimate. You know, I notice, you know, carbon and health and supply chain are massive industries to disrupt. And I think what you guys are doing is you're using the blockchain for a real purpose, not just like creating a white paper out of thin air, because I think that's getting a little bit ridiculous now in some sense. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think, you know, the naive investor is no more in the blockchain space. I think people demand a real project, you know, and that was even difficulty with our project. We would start off with some partners in the blockchain community, and the next thing you know, 2 months later, the project's either no more or they've changed focus. So I think it's a little bit of a minefield out there if you're thinking about which projects have some longevity and real use cases and these things. So we've tried to, well, you know, do it in the right way. Normally, people are doing ICOs, they're putting the cart before the horse, and we have the cart and the horse in the right order. So we're not doing an ICO, we're doing a platform launch where the One Planet marketplace is going to be live and people can use the token from day one. And, you know, that's exciting for us. So I think we're definitely doing things the hard way, if you will. It's been a longer path, but, you know, we're ready and we're excited.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's kind of cool, you know, with the way we've designed everything is that people are able to understand it's an educational tool as well, because
for sure,
when you get in there, most people don't understand what contributes to their carbon footprint or what their daily activities or consumption contributes. So this is a way for them to educate themselves as well. So.
For me, it's all about education and transparency. You know, it goes a long way, especially when you build a project. And I think that's kind of really important, especially with an audience of my magnitude, is try to be transparent at all times. But I love the subject. I love what you guys are doing. You guys are tackling some amazing things. And I want to ask you, my next question is, what problem are you trying to solve, Jesse? You know, we see so many projects, but what problem is it you guys are trying to solve for Climate Futures?
I mean, it's more than one. And part of the problem is looking, you know, the system itself, the project itself, depending on your perspective, it's different things to different people. But I'll try to name a few. So, for example, the first problem I said, you know, how to connect a crypto token to something of value. That's problem number one. Two, how to develop a crypto token that has real utility and use. That's another problem. How to scale up funding for green projects. That's also what this system is about. So,
and tell us about Climate Futures. What problem are you trying to solve there, if you can talk about the project?
Oh, well, you know, as I said, we're trying to scale up. We're basically trying to solve climate change, if you will. We're trying to give people a way to take action, engage in the problem, and reduce carbon emissions. So ultimately, that's what this project is about, is reducing carbon emissions, because that's what we have to do. You know, I'll hopefully in the follow-up interview be able to show your viewers some slides
real
that will explain, you know, this is where we are today, this is where we need to be. But I think people get that. I mean, you know, most people now are much better educated about climate change. So they understand that the root cause of climate change is carbon emissions. Our project helps people and companies reduce carbon emissions, and it does it in a way that's market-based, which, you have to have, because we're not going to change our economic system.
No.
So we have to work within it, which is a market-based solution. So we leverage market-based solutions to reduce carbon emissions.
I like it.
That's what One Planet does.
I like what One Planet are doing. I like the transparency of how you guys are coming across. People who are actually watching this video interview, this is one project that's really trying to stand out. And, as I say, global warming is a big thing. The amount of carbon that's pumped in the air as well is also another big thing. And tokenizing this, but not in a sense of doing an ICO, but Climate Futures are taking a different approach. It seems quite an interesting model where you guys are taking it. Would you agree, Jesse?
Well, I have to agree. I've put the last 2 years of my life and a lot of sweat into this project. I really believe in it, but I think the proof is in the pudding, right? People have to
for sure.
Register, get on, go to oneplanet.app. That's where climatefutures.com and start registering for the project to test it out. Take it for a test.
Love it.
So I think the great news is that basically next month we'll basically do the initial onboarding for the project, and we'll have our soft launch. And the big event that's happening this year is next year, January 1st, the Paris Agreement starts. So that is a global agreement to reduce carbon emissions. It incentivizes companies to do that, and governments as well. So it's kind of what we call the real start of the low carbon economy. And we're catching that wave, if you will. So I like to surf. So I think of myself as, we're in business.
Pretty high up there.
Catch these waves, right?
Right.
So, that's the thing. The next big wave, I think, is, companies.
The Paris Agreement.
That support the Paris Agreement, that support a transition to this low carbon economy. People want that. Companies, some companies want it, some don't. But, at the end of the day, the companies are built to serve their clients and their consumers. And so I see this as not just a wave, it's a tidal wave. In 5 years, it's going to be amazing.
I think it's going to be amazing for in that industry where you guys are going. I think that's what's going to be amazing, because it'll be a real use case to some extent what you guys are trying to solve in our environment. And I think it's a hot topic, especially my viewers watching this. Global warming is the real deal, right? It's the real thing.
Well, and that's part of what pushed me into this. I was I had to evacuate. I'm down in Miami, so I evacuated twice for 2 years in a row for hurricanes that were mega hurricanes, category 5. Did tremendous damage, and I wanted to come up with something. I said, okay, we have to do more. I have to develop a way to get people on board, create some advocacy. So this system does that as well. It ticks a lot of boxes, which is why I like it. You mentioned supply chains. That is also, the way the system is designed so that we can link to companies that are using blockchain, or maybe not, but the system has an API, so we can basically allow companies to kind of green their supply chains. So the way it works is they're going to do, reductions internally, but some they can't, and sometimes they need to use carbon offsetting, to support greening of their supply chain, and to develop carbon neutral products as well. So that's a big push in the industry.
Amazing. So there's a little bit about Climate Futures and the One Planet. I hope you guys are enjoying this video interview. I'm certainly learning all about it. This is all for education. This is not sort of any sort of financial advice. It's just purely telling you what Climate Futures are doing. So tell us about it, the regulation. You're not an ICO, so are you tokenizing your assets? How is it going with that front in terms of regulation and so forth?
Well, basically, we're a U.S. registered company, so we have to be fully compliant with.
Correct.
That's part of the reason we're not doing an ICO as well, or we haven't taken that path, because when what we've done basically is, I said, we've created the platform with a token that you can use, and that's very different than an ICO in the regulatory space. So we're not a security, we're not creating a security. There's, again, two reasons for that. The first being that the carbon credits are regulated by the CFTC, which is the Commodities Future Trade Commission. So they basically, it's a different regime than a security. So it's a commodity, so it's regulated by the CFTC.
That's good for investors, right? That's good for, you know, overall people.
Yeah, and you can't give investment advice, but hopefully,
right? No,
realize
yeah.
You know, so I think the fundamental issue, and this is for the blockchain community and people doing, you know, launching crypto tokens. And again, I'm not a lawyer, but we've done the legal analysis, we've gone through all that, and we've looked at everything from different directions. And so I think the fundamental thing is that most of us would agree that not every crypto token is a security. However, almost every ICO in the eyes of the SEC creates a security. So that turned out to be the issue that we realized early on, was the traditions of an ICO where you're selling the token before you have anything that people can use, you know, is essentially a problem in regards to the, you know, security regulations in the United States. So we had to avoid that entirely.
Right.
You know, we have, and that's why we've developed the platform.
And how does your tokenization model go? How does it work then? I mean, you're not an ICO.
Well, yeah, no, the tokenization is basically, we have carbon credits, and those are created by projects. So carbon credits are generated by projects that reduce emissions. These are all independently certified and verified. It's a very lengthy process. That's actually how I got started in the business. I was an auditor for these projects. So I was running around the world, you know, checking that these projects were basically doing what they said they were going to do, that the environmental performance and benefits were there. And so that whole process is actually very transparent, but it's very paper-based. so there's a big push in the business or in the market of carbon offsets and these things is how to also bring in blockchain for the supply side. So our system is designed that it's not there yet. So we're using legacy systems, and then we're tokenizing the carbon credits created by those legacy systems in order for people to be able to get access to them. Because otherwise, for small, as I said earlier, for small transactions, all the transaction costs kill them. You know, it's more expensive for a person to just go through all the rigmarole to actually delivery of a carbon credit. Whereas, you know, with our system, with a cell phone, you can take delivery of One Planet tokens and basically use them and have access to, you know, the carbon credit.
That's something we can talk about in the next one.
Absolutely.
But we got more to come, guys. So obviously, don't tune off. This is also, we're going to talk about the app in the next one. But just to finalize this interview, Jesse. So, you know, you're doing great things. What is it you want to tell the listeners about, you know, Climate Futures and the One Planet? What's the message you want to convey? And just tell us where you're going to go with this, say, in the next few years.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. Well, I think the message here is that, one, if you think climate change is an issue, this is something you can do about it.
I think there's a lot of people that are going to find it an issue. I'm sure a lot of listeners are going to comment on the section below.
Yeah, and if you believe in a green, sustainable economy, that's what our ecosystem is all about, you know. And we want you to join that and, you know, work with our partners. You know, you'll see some of them. We've got some really cool ones. We're developing that. You know, after we actually go live with the platform, we're going to have a lot more partners come on board, because it's much easier to develop those companies that want to use our platform when the platform's functioning. So. But nevertheless, we have, you know, give you an example. So we're looking at retail partners, travel partners, event partners, concerts and these kind of things. So, you know, these are organizations that, you know, you just heard probably about, was it Coldplay? They stopped their concert because they said, look, we're not going to do it until we can do carbon neutral. So if Coldplay, you're out there listening, contact us. So anyway,
Contact
the
Climate
point is, this isn't just about Coldplay. It's not about Amazon, because Amazon came out and said also, you know, there's all these big companies taking commitments. But the point is, what about the rest of us? You know, what about the companies that aren't Amazon? They need something that's a turnkey solution like One Planet. People also need that. That's what the app is about. So, you know, we're trying to, you know, we're catering also to people, but also to companies, and we're creating this positive economy through that. That's really what it's about. You know,
there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video interview. You know, Jesse told us all about Climate Futures, the One Planet. We're going to talk about the app next, and there's a lot more to come. I hope you enjoyed the video interview. Like I say, this is not any sort of financial advice. This is just purely an educational video interview to tell you about Climate Futures, what these guys are doing. It's also for the sake of transparency as well, because, you know, Jesse's really trying to make a change in the blockchain, and I think it's a guy you should follow. He's a representative for a good cause, and I think, you know, Climate Futures and everyone who's concerned about, you know, global warming should tune into this video interview and check out what Climate Futures are doing, and check out their model as well, what they're up to. There'll be a lot more to come in the next one, but is anything final you'd like to say, Jesse?
Well, I think I would like to give a little bit of a teaser for the next interview so people come back. But basically, the next one, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that we're going to have a nice Christmas present for your listeners that sign up next month, and I'll tell you about that. So there'll be a little bit of an extra reward for people that come on board to the platform next month. Secondly, I'm going to be at the UN climate negotiations in Madrid, Spain, when we have our next interview. So I'll have some breaking news from that, which I think will be important for One Planet, but also for your viewers. So excited.
Great. I'm excited.
All right.
All right. So let's wrap this up. Jesse, privileged to have you. Thanks to my audience as well for checking this out. I mean, I know a lot of you are going to find this video interview interesting, and look forward to the next one. Peace, much love, and respect. Thanks, Jesse. Thank you.
Take it easy.